very warm welcome. This is SDIG Live. Yes, indeed, from the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group based in Maryland in the USA, and our studios here in London, a special International Women's Day event titled International Women's Day Continues, Invest in Women. Yes, indeed. And today, which is Sunday, the 24th of March, 2024, SDIG Live has the pleasure to present Dr. Chinonye Nnakwe Whitley, a PhD molecular biologist of all things. Joining us very shortly will be the president of SDIG and your host for this afternoon, Dr. Joseph Nwoye, who will be discussing with Dr. Whitley the subject of International Women's Day, investing in women and accelerating the progress. I'll be telling you a little about Dr. Whitley in just a moment, but for those of you who have not yet met him, Dr. Joseph Nwoye has served at various levels from first year undergrad to teaching doctoral students, and he's served in various admin positions, including as director of the Urban Education Program at the Center for Multicultural Education at Illinois State. He is a professional development specialist and was an adjunct faculty member until recently when he accepted the position as president of the nonprofit organization Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group, which is in the USA a recognized 501c3 nonprofit organization, a position that he's held now for the last 3 years. Dr. Nwoye's special guest this afternoon is Dr. Whitley. And I'd like to hand over to Dr. Nwoye to introduce his guest and make progress with today's event. Dr. Nwoye, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adam. And for those of you who may be wondering, we haven't started early. We sometimes have glitches such as today, so bear with us. And again, I want to start by indicating what SDIG does, our purpose. Our purpose is essentially to provide opportunities and platform for people to be able to share their views in various things. And we also provide members the opportunity to share their work as well as engage with other people who share similar works. And we believe in multiple stories. Otherwise, you can have one story that are often tainted, not even reflecting the facts. But when you have multiple stories, then you'll be able to decipher what you can believe and what you may not believe. So in that tradition, it's my pleasure to have Dr. Chichi. I don't know if I would call her Chichi. I think I'll call her the real name. Chinonye. Chinonye means one who God is around or who is protected. So, and it happened to be somebody I had known her parents over when I was at Illinois State University. I've been looking around to see if I can see them, but unfortunately I have not seen them. And I hope that they will be able to join. So without taking further time, I would go in our tradition to have Dr. Nnakwe introduce herself, and within 3 to 7 minutes, and she can then segue to presenting the material she wants to present. And at the end of that section, I will have a couple of questions for her, and then we would then begin to wind up. So thank you again for bearing with the shortcomings we had this morning. Some people call it computer glitches, and whatever you call it, it just interrupted us somehow, but let's go on. Dr. Chichi.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be your speaker today. My parents are trying to join, but I don't think they have Teams, so they're trying to figure out how to get around the settings. Um,
Oh,
yeah, but I did forward them the link. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Dr. Nwoye, for inviting me to speak on behalf of your organization. I'll send a special shout out to Patricia Page, who initially contacted me, and I'm so happy to be here in this place. And
absolutely.
also the wonderful IT help that we've gotten. Technology is only as good as it works. So we were able to show some resiliency today. So I do thank you and I do appreciate the invitation. What I wanted to do was to do a brief overview of some highlights of my career journey, and then I'm happy to address questions that we have from you as well as the audience. But I'll start again by saying my full name. My name is Chinonye Nnakwe Whitley. My parents, I'll acknowledge them in a minute. I'm a first generation Nigerian, meaning that I was born in the United States to Nigerian parents. My background is in the sciences, but also diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and innovation and entrepreneurship. And my path has not been a straight one, which is most folks. But one thing I have to say is that my path is the right one. And I think that a lot of times when we talk to aspiring scientists and engineers, they don't know that they can do so much in their lives at the bench and beyond. And so I hope that that's a testament. My journey will be a testament to that. And so again, I did say that I'm a first generation Nigerian American. I grew up in central Illinois. You see there, my father, Emeka Nnakwe, as well as my mother, Nwoye Nnakwe. Um, and they both have PhDs. So we refer to him as Papa Doc, refer to my mother as Mama Doc, and I'm Baby Doc as of when I got
I love that.
and I'm very, very proud to have been raised by my parents. They taught me essential skill sets that have carried me on for my life, and I try to bestow them in my own children. Um, Through their expectations, education was a priority. And as I went along in my journey, I found a love for physiology and biochemistry in undergraduate, which led me to immerse myself in research and mentorship. And so that started me off on my pathway to becoming a scientist. And so once I obtained my bachelor's in biochemistry, I wanted to conduct research in a field that's going to help other people. Because as we know in Nigeria, most folks really need an MD nearby to do a number of things, provide medication, provide treatments. But I wanted to use my love for science in a different way. I wanted to uh, explore how to identify new knowledge that would inform the treatments that doctors give, which is what motivated me to pursue a PhD in biological science. And my work focuses on cancer biology, even though it's a basic science, fundamental science topic. After I finished my, oh, sorry, I won't go backwards. Uh, in my dissertation work, I studied DNA repair and DNA damage, which we all are undergoing all the time, every minute of the day. We can have exposure from toxins in the environment, as well as in the food that we eat that generate these things called free radicals that attack different parts of our cells, including DNA. And our DNA then experiences damage as a result. But have no fear, our body is ready for this. And there are a number of repair pathways in place for us to be able to repair our DNA. But if DNA is not repaired, the loss of material that would be transmitted from the DNA can lead to various diseases, in addition to stopping the cell from dividing, also cancer, where the cell does not want to stop dividing. And so with my research, I wanted to understand what are those machines, those proteins that are working in our body to actually figure out how to make sure our DNA stays intact. Okay, so next slide. And I just wanted to note that, again, if we don't have these different proteins or these little machines in our bodies fixing the DNA as it gets damaged, we have a number of diseases that can come forth. In addition to cancer, we have folks who have mutations in these proteins have radiosensitivity, right? Because now you don't have anything to fix the DNA as it's being damaged. You can see premature aging, and then interestingly enough, that DNA maintenance also has applications to our immune system, right? Because the immune system cells that progress to help us fight disease also depend on DNA repair to develop in the first place. So if we don't have that DNA repair machinery, then we don't have certain immune cells, and that can make us more susceptible to disease. There's also neuroscience related issues that will occur if we're not able to repair our DNA. And so it's a very important topic. So once I finished my graduate degree, I wanted to go out and explore how my work could work in industry. And so I worked for a short time in consulting, and I worked with pharmaceutical companies. And what that taught me was I'm not ready for corporate America, nor will I be. For me, I wanted to figure out what is it that I enjoyed most when I was working at the lab, and it was giving back. It was thinking of how I can increase the diversity of my colleagues as we're progressing in STEM, because as I was a student, both in undergraduate and graduate school, I didn't see very many students of color, women, people with disabilities. And so I then turned my work to becoming the Director of Graduate Diversity Initiatives at the University of Chicago, and was able to chase my passion for what we call broadening participation, or advancing diversity in higher education. And so from the provost office at University of Chicago, I went from being a student to an administrator, identifying institutional strategies to recruit the brightest minds that were also underrepresented in all fields to the university to seek their education. And while I was there starting up a new office that had not begun before, I worked with faculty to recruit students. I created new programs to attract them. I helped us join multiple consortiums that would enable us to have greater access to trainees. And then I also work with deans and postdoctoral deans to write a grant that started what's called the Big Ten Academic Alliance, where we use multiple universities now to come together to support postdoctoral researchers, and also offer mentor training so that we could address the systemic challenges that students from underrepresented groups go through when they're pursuing their degrees. So often we see that there are a whole host of micro and macroaggressions in the environment that could impede progress. But so what I wanted to do with this project was to address those systemic issues. Often people will look at the students as if they're the ones that have the problem, but in reality, there's also a whole systemic environment around those students that are also an impediment. And I see that one of my family members is online. I hear my mom, so just want to give her a shout out.
Where is she?
She's in it. She's among
Okay, I see her. Okay, go ahead. That's neat.
Okay, so maybe we can change the slide.
Wow.
So once I did my work for about 4.5 years at University of Chicago, I got bored. It was too cyclical. And I was like, I need to change. I think I need to advance my passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at a grander level. And so for any person obtaining a PhD or a master's in engineering, with experience, you can go to DC and work as an American Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology Policy Fellow. And that means that you will be a scientist or engineer embedded in the government. And for me, my fellowship was to be embedded at the National Science Foundation with the Innovation Core program that offers experiential education to scientists and their trainees to understand how can they commercialize their research. And so when I was immersed in that environment, again, I did not see great diversity among the awardees, the participants, the institution types. So I didn't see a lot of diversity. So I worked with my mentor, Anita LaSalle, to develop different mechanisms through NSF to figure out how do we access and increase diversity, equity, inclusion within the Innovation Core program. I also had an opportunity to create a general framework for what my career work would now be, which is thinking of how to advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and access within the guise of science and engineering, as well as incorporating innovation and entrepreneurship, because the gap of those that are pursuing degrees in STEM is smaller. But then when you look at those that are pursuing entrepreneurial activities, it's even tighter, it's even smaller, right? But what I learned was that there's great agency in being an entrepreneur. Next slide. And as part of my fellowship, I also taught innovation training. I offered workshops to help people obtain different types of mindsets. This one is an example here called design thinking, where you learn how to obtain the perspective of who you're trying to serve and then create solutions to address the needs that they have. And so that's something that I really thought would be wonderful for folks that work at companies, right? That's an innovative component that enables you to be an entrepreneur. But then even outside of a company, if you're in the government, if you're in a university, if you're in a lab, you're also an entrepreneur, where you're still building something new and different and taking the agency and that mindset to build something that's going to address societal problems. Next slide. Uh-oh. Is there a next slide? Okay, good. So now I work, I forgot my disclaimer. What I was supposed to say is that that the impressions, the statements, and the pictures that I show are not necessarily the opinion of the National Science Foundation, but my own, right? So that was the disclaimer that I'm supposed to put out. But as the work that I do now at NSF as a program officer, I've had an opportunity to build wonderful partnerships at that intersection of STEM, innovation, entrepreneurship, and diversity, equity, inclusion. So we had the pleasure of creating partnerships with other agencies to create a pathway for investigators to go out and build collaborations. That's a program that I run right now. And then I also partner within my agency to create whole nodes where the focus is figuring out how to get trainees that have been enrolled in the GEM engineering and science program to better access innovation core programming. So that's just an example of some of the things that I've been able to enjoy doing in my work, and also on the side as well, because I know that one question you had, Dr. Nwoye, was how does this relate to innovation, inclusive innovation solutions, which is my consulting firm. And that's a consulting firm that I use, where I use innovation trainings and approaches to help solve problems for clients. So next slide. Okay, so this is just basically a snapshot of where I've been able to go. I started off with great parents and great family members that created a rich environment for me to grow and learn and pursue science. I was able to see innovation at scale as a consultant, and then learn how to scale broadening participation activities through my fellowship, and now doing that through my work and my consultancy. So I'll stop there because I want to make sure we have enough time for questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, before we segue to a couple of questions I may have, I would like the audience to ask Dr. Chinonye Nnakwe Whitley. Let's call it right. You know, if you listen to when she called my name, she's probably one of the few people that got my name right in a number of years. So it's a joy to have you. And anyone that has questions, please raise your hand, or Adam, could you monitor questions, and let's have her answer a couple of questions before we go to the other session.
All right.
Yes, Dr. Nwoye, very happy to do that. This is Sedley here in the London office for SDIG. And for those of you who are with us live at the moment, a very warm welcome yet again to this session this afternoon, International Women's Day, continuing investing in women and accelerating the progress. So if you are with us live and you would like to ask Dr. Whitley a question, or possibly a question for Dr. Nwoye, then please feel free to unmute your microphone. And if you wish to turn your camera on, you are welcome, but you are not required to do so. Unmute your microphone and go ahead with your question. If you're too shy, feel free to put a question in the chat on the right-hand side of your screen.
You can't be shy, though. Go ahead and answer your question, or rather, ask your question. All right.
Well, you go ahead, Dr. Nwoye, and anything that comes through in the meantime as a question, I will let you know.
Okay. Dr. Chichi, it's an honor to have you, and certainly very proud of what you have done. And anybody who knows your parents like I do will know that there's a saying that goes, a fruit doesn't plant itself, but it plants by the tree that gave birth to it. So knowing your parents well, is I can be prouder than I am. SDIG is equally proud to have you, have somebody who can call one of our own. Well accomplished. You are a lady of tremendous accomplishment, considering what you've navigated. And going to Urbana, I'm familiar with that place, and then ultimately going to University of Chicago, where my daughter just finished her undergraduate program. The school is great. So I'm so proud to have you here, and I'm sure your parents are, they feel the same way. So it's a pleasure to have you.
Okay.
Now, I would have just a few questions for you. You were talking about DNA repairs and DNA damage, and looking at it in terms of cost-benefit analysis. How would you tell an average Joe on the street what they can do to ensure that they do whatever they can to protect themselves?
Yeah. So you want to think of it like this. Where do we get radiation or energy that can penetrate our clothing, penetrate our skin cells, right? The sun. That's a very easy example. But also when someone is smoking, the chemicals in that smoke we inhale can also impact our body as we inhale it, right? Those have chemicals that can generate what's called a free radical or something that can attach to our DNA and damage it, right? Those are just two examples. Sun has a number of rays that can do that penetration through our skin, right? So we talk about UV rays, ultraviolet, right? Ionizing radiation, microwave ray or X-rays, excuse me, not microwave, X-rays. And when we go to the doctor, we wear like a leaded cape because they only want to direct the X-rays in a certain place. They don't want to overexpose you, right? So when you're thinking about cost-benefit analysis, what do you do to protect yourself? A lot of times it's basic things that you can learn from your doctor or from public health agencies. You wear sunscreen when you go outside and you know you're going to have high exposure to sun. I see that my mother-in-law's here, Mama Ange. I'm always borrowing her sunscreen when we go to the beach, when we go outside in the sun. You can wear sunglasses to protect your eyes, right? Because it'll say UVA or UVB resistant. That's protecting the sun rays from getting into your eyes. You wear clothes, right? So that's also a way to protect yourself from the sun's rays. But then there's all these public announcements saying, don't smoke. Smoking is not good for you. And you can either inhale it from secondhand smoke, or you can smoke yourself, and then all of that goes into your body. And so you start to see those warnings that cigarettes can cause cancer because you're directly exposing your lungs to the toxins in that smoke. So when it comes to just cost benefit analysis, very easy way to protect yourself is things that we've been doing all along. It's just we didn't know the science behind it. And that's something that I enjoy. I enjoy learning about things at a very basic level, molecular level. So.
Okay. Going to the alliances you've built, because you noticed that diversity wasn't the way it should be, and you obviously seem to be action-minded individual, so you just started doing something about it. And having to keep that on one side and looking at sort of systemic changes we see, I'm wondering if you could reflect on that as well as look at the challenges we often have. It seems to me that the more changes we make in pursuit of equity and social justice, we get some proportionate backlash on that. So going back to say, during the post-revolution, after the Civil War, we had a period of progress. That's when African Americans progressed very rapidly. And that was followed by some sort of backlash. And then we went to Jim Crow. And then Jim Crow was followed by civil rights. And of course, civil rights then was followed by other things, such as when the massacre in Wellington. Then all those things, if you look at it, I think sometimes it's really depressing. And then Obama administration came in. They say, oh, black president. And after black president, that one, ended. And then what are we seeing? In fact, during that time was the greatest number of racism in this country. And it keeps going. When you look at the frustrations and the fact that it's like we take 2 steps forward and take 3 steps backwards. Looking at what you have done at your young age, how do you feel? Do you think that what you've done thus far is moving in the right direction? Because they say you younger generation are pushing for better tomorrow where everybody will be respected, but sometimes are questioned. So can you just in general share your view of the past, the present, and moving forward?
So the way I think about it, I liken it to my journey as a scientist, right? When you're a scientist, you're working at the bench, you're really focused on your work, your sentence that you're going to add to the book of science, right? Whatever field you're trying to add. And you're very focused, like you really have blinders on, right? When I moved to a federal space in my career, I was forced to have a broader way to think and to think at scale, right? So I'm no longer thinking about my science. I'm now thinking about the science of all the trainees in a given institution. And then I went from the institutional level to a national level. So now I have to think about, how do I think about folks that are in a whole state, for example? How do I think about the welfare of those folks in that state? And I have to say that, there are different ways to look at it and think about things, and people can either think about things at a very myopic level or a very broad level, right? My thought and my hope and my belief is that the work that I do enables people to come together to see each other in a broad way as human beings, right? As all God's children on earth, right? We're all human at the end of the day. But there are some that have been exposed, and through growing up, through social pressures, through social teaching, to think that we're not all human. And that's how you got such disparity in terms of how people were able to come out of chattel slavery. Keep in mind that I think it was 400 years that we were in chattel slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little over 200 years that we're out. So we're still trying to emerge, if you think broadly, from that dark past that many brothers and sisters that were enslaved from Africa have been able to come out of, right? So you have to look at the system as a whole. You have the people that were enslaved trying to come out and do better, and then you have the people around them that never saw them as human beings. And so when you have those people trying to move forward, the folks that have been able to manage and navigate power dynamics so it's in their favor have been able to take advantage of that. So if you see that back and forth swing, you see us take a step forward, and those that have not been able to acknowledge that we're all humans will take those levers of power and try to push the pendulum back the other direction. So it's not until we all are able to see each other as humans and understand that we all have a hand in lifting each other up that you're going to continue to see that. But being able to have the inspiration of generations before me, my generation, I'm Generation X, and also generations coming my way, right? That each generation has their own energy, their own contribution they're going to make to this overall struggle for everyone to be common human beings that are able to love one another. And so I would say that what gives me hope is that I see more energy and more advances in the generation of folks of the diaspora coming behind me, but then also their allies that are not of the diaspora. And it's really going to take everyone in and out of the African diaspora to really be able to have us work and acknowledge each other as human beings.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm hopeful, as you had discussed, that hope is the only thing that will drive people forward. Having that in mind, if you look at how things are, we debate issues that is crystal clear, but somehow some people want to be debating it.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at data, for those of you in science,
Mm-hmm.
I see things like women, Black women in particular, who are trying to have birth, dying as a result of trying to have babies. And yes, some people say that, in fact, African Americans have better chance of dying in childbearing than people in third world countries.
Hmm.
And then you move to when these kids are born, they get to first grade. You see some people who had been ingrained with racist view. On the first day of class, they determine who is gonna succeed and who is not gonna succeed. And if you move forward, you see some elements of it. You see some elements of it as you move forward. So what I would ask is, despite you having said, that hope, we implied hope, I'm wondering if people look at unemployment rate every month, look at people who don't have water because of the location in Michigan or in Mississippi, the one that they have been dealing with in recent times. And yet, we have organizations whose leaders purport to be pushing for diversity, and yet they sidetrack those important things depending on the location of where it is. My question to you, as someone who is really involved in some of these things with mind of yours, as well as the minds of your parents, whom I regard and respect very dearly, what strategies would you recommend that will enable us to, be able to put those people in place, especially those who would negate what former Senator of New York, Senator Monahan, characterized as, he said that you are entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to the facts. But today, we see people who push their opinion even when it doesn't have any base, and people who suffer as a result of those falsities are oftentimes the minorities, and particularly African Americans. How could we get the leadership to begin to know that they cannot continue that way? Do you have any comment or strategy for doing something to reverse it?
So the way that the U.S. government is set up with the three branches, right? The judicial, the legislative, the executive being the presidential office. There are a number of ties that are in place to prevent dramatic change from happening all at once without some sort of consensus, right? And so the executive branch is tied to the people that vote as well as the legislative branch. The judicial branch is not tied to the legislative branch, the Supreme Court, after they've been appointed, but the president has to appoint the judges on the Supreme Court, for example, right? And even the local legislators are accountable to people that pay taxes and vote. So if you ever hear about politics is local, right? It's real because the people that are going to be your decision makers as to whether or not you're in office are the ones that vote. And so a lot of times people don't understand how that connection works. If you don't, we all have a role to play in our government. As taxpayers and as citizens, we have the role to vote for choosing our leaders. The leaders have a role to hear the needs of their constituents and then create policies that are going to support their constituents, right? As well as the president, right? We also vote for the president. And then the president manages the executive branch and all the federal or governmental agencies that are put in place to carry out their missions, but also carry out the policies as directed by the president, right? So we all have a role to play in the democracy that we're living in. And when you see a shifting or a weight away from, or things that take away those ties or those threads of accountability, you start to see shifts in democracy in terms of how people are held up or not. Okay. And so the best thing we can do is sit in the democratic process by voting and on sitting on jury duty. Right? Because we're choosing the people that are going to be sending, making decisions about other people's lives. Right? That's our role. But somehow that role and that duty has been masked, or there have been barriers created to enable people to exercise that right. We have laws that prevent people from receiving water while they're waiting in line to vote. It's like, what is it, a felony now in certain states? And so that is all designed to try to keep people from exercising their legal right to select the people that lead them. And so we have to be able to be fervent about voting so that our voice is heard. And a lot of times people don't feel like their voice is heard if the person that they voted for didn't win. But what happens is you not only vote for the high level person like the president or the senator or the legislator, you also vote for the school board member. You vote for the local judge that's going to be enacting laws. You vote for the sheriff, right? You vote for a whole host of local representatives that have direct impact on your life. And so it's a muscle, it's a skill that everyone needs to learn and learn how to be resilient even in the face of not seeing if the outcome is going to go their way. So
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it seems like you can wear more hats than you're already wearing. We need people like you that are well conversant with the dynamics of politics, because a lot of people may think that they're from United States. Being from United States make them knowledgeable about it, but when you look at what is happening, no, definitely it's not. So thank you so much. And as I look at the time, and we want to be closing, otherwise I would love to be talking forever here. So if you could take a moment to give us a kind of closing remarks, and perhaps because I see that you are doing so many things, you would give them ideas to what you do, that anyone that is interested could contact you at future time. Please do that.
Okay. So my closing remarks have more to do with my choice of intersecting diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility with innovation, entrepreneurship, and STEM. As a scientist and engineer, I see the opportunities that pursuing a STEM or STEAM career can bring to someone. We're in the age of generative artificial intelligence, and this is the next great technology that's going to create additional gaps for people who are less resourced and more resourced. And at present, as long as you have an internet connection, as long as you can get to like a Starbucks with your phone, you can have access to it. But a lot of people are not choosing to do it because they're afraid that it's going to do something harmful, right? Take away their job. But what they don't understand is that the more that you're in it, the more you can have a say in whether or not it's going to impact you as a person, right? And at the federal level, there are laws being put in place to ensure that there's fair AI practices, right? Or artificial intelligence practices. But I digress. The reason why I went into innovation is because the mindset of being an innovator, an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur is one that gives you agency to be able to dictate where your path is going to take you, right? You recognize that if you don't like something, you can change it. And that's something that I learned in my fellowship and I practice in my life now. And I try to also make sure that I can empathize with those that I work with because I want to understand how can I help you? That's my natural orientation. How can I be of service? But then how can I understand your position, even if we don't agree, so that we can get to a common point of view? And so I really want to encourage folks that are considering careers to really think about having some aspect of entrepreneurship where you're creating something new and different within an organization, or an entrepreneurial level where you're creating something that generates profit and also security for yourself. And so I have my own businesses on the side that I work on at nights and weekends when I'm not doing my federal job. And one is a passion that I have for flowers. I'm a floral artist, and I'm also an aspiring floral farmer. I have 19 peony bushes. And I'm also a real estate investor. And with my husband, we created a small business, a real estate company that invests in real estate rentals. And so I'll put that information there If you'd like to get a hold of me, you're more than welcome to do so at my flower business email. But I also have my consultancy, which I just don't have enough time today. I also got kids. So
Yeah.
that comes as it comes. So I'll end there. And I again, I thank you so much for inviting me and enabling me to have this wonderful dialogue. I'm sorry I have an Apple user. That's what caused the technical issues, but hopefully we'll try again. Maybe you'll have me back for another reason and we'll try again.
Well,
Thank you so
you
much
did.
for the invitation.
You did wonderful. It's a joyful thing to have you here. And I can see Dr. Nnakwe. I don't know which one, whether it's the father in Nnakwe or the mother in Nnakwe, but
Oh,
I
they're
see,
both on. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not there.
Yes, they're both on.
The Dr. Nnakwe is, I cannot know. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that came. Sundays is usually a day that most people don't get engaged in some of these things. So, but I'm still glad for the number of people that showed up. And Chichi, thank you so much, and continue to push. Obviously, you are making some important discoveries, so keep up with it. And do extend my greetings with your parents. I thought I could see them, but unfortunately things are not working well. But hopefully we'll be able to get a hold of them, okay? All right, Mr. Adam. Well, Patricia, thank you so much for bringing one of our own. All right.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nwoye. SDIG Live on Sunday, the 24th of March, 2024, coming to you from the East Coast of the USA and our studios here in London, hosted by the president of SDIG, Dr. Joseph Nwoye. This event was to commemorate International Women's Day, investing in women and accelerating the progress, with Dr. Chinonye Nnakwe Whitley, who is a molecular biologist working in the federal government in the USA, and whose area of expertise covers a number of both technical and social continuums. If you'd like to find out more about Dr. Whitley and find out more about SDIG itself, the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group, then by all means visit us at www.systemicdiversity.org, where you'll be able to find information about how to find out our activities on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also our journal. So on behalf of Dr. Nwoye and the whole team here at the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group, thank you very much for joining us, and would like to wish you good day, good night, and whoever you believe in, God bless.